What if the balance of power in orbit shifted overnight? What if a force once mocked as science fiction suddenly became the one challenger Russia's space command never expected? These are not scenes from a Hollywood film, but questions that strike at the heart of a new military frontier. The battle for space. In this story, you'll enter a world where satellites aren't just silent machines, but potential weapons. Where America's Space Force, still young and underestimated, steps onto the stage against Russia's long-established space command. A world where laser defense grids, orbital jammers, and hypersonic missiles streak across the void hidden above our heads, deciding the fate of nations without a single shot fired on Earth. You'll discover how a confrontation in space could unfold, how history's Cold War rivalries echo in orbit, and how the race for dominance among the stars could alter global security forever. This isn't prophecy. It's not prediction. It's a cinematic exploration, purely educational and meant to make you think about the unseen power struggles shaping the skies above. Stay with this video, because each chapter pulls you deeper into a suspenseful what-if scenario you've never seen told this way before. Subscribe now, because you won't want to miss what comes next. The silent battlefield above. What if the next great war never touched the oceans or the skies of Earth, but unfolded in silence above the clouds? What if the very satellites that guide your phone, power your GPS, and link global communication became the first targets in a conflict no one could see with the naked eye? The year is not specified. The stage is not set with tanks or aircraft carriers, but with objects the size of school buses and cars, orbiting invisibly. Russia's Space Command has long prepared for this kind of theater, convinced that control of space equals control of the modern battlefield. Yet across the ocean, America's Space Force, dismissed by critics as symbolic, even unnecessary, is sharpening its edge. A quiet rivalry brews, where the most advanced technologies ever engineered face off in a domain where there are no borders, no trenches, no oceans, only silence. To understand this clash, you must first grasp the invisible web holding our world together. Every missile warning system, every transoceanic flight, every armored brigade on the ground relies on the satellites orbiting above. They are the nervous system of modern war. And whoever holds them by the throat controls the fight before it even begins. Russia's military leaders, inheritors of Soviet-era space programs, see themselves as pioneers in this arena. They have tested anti-satellite missiles, jammed communications from orbit, and developed orbital maneuvering satellites capable of shadowing, even threatening, America's most prized assets. For Moscow, space is an extension of the battlefield, a place to disrupt, deny, and deceive. But America's Space Force, newly born yet fueled with cutting-edge investment, carries a vision that Russia underestimated. In the shadows of secrecy, experimental craft like the mysterious X-37B space plane circle the Earth, vanishing into orbit for years at a time. Advanced sensors sweep the heavens, tracking every Russian maneuver, every test launch, every glimmer of potential aggression. Behind the polished uniforms and the blue patches lies a mission to ensure that America is never blind in the vast expanse above. Picture the scene. A Russian inspector satellite drifts closer to a U.S. communications hub in geostationary orbit. Ground controllers in Moscow insist it's only for research, for peaceful observation. Yet deep inside the Space Force's command center, analysts watch the orbit paths cross like blades. The question grows: will it merely pass by, or will it deploy claws, lasers, or kinetic devices designed to cripple? In that moment, silence becomes more dangerous than noise. The opening shots of such a war wouldn't look like missiles streaking across the night sky. They would look like your phone losing signal, aircraft losing navigation, or early warning radars going blind. It would be chaos born from silence. And Russia has built the doctrine for this counter-space operations designed to leave an enemy deaf, blind, and vulnerable. But here lies the twist. America's Space Force isn't waiting to be cornered. Hidden beneath contracts, labs, and bases spread across Colorado and Florida, it has been quietly training operators, testing rapid launch rockets, and simulating orbital warfare scenarios that even Russia never imagined. In war games, Space Force strategists talk not of ships or tanks, but of constellations, uplinks, and orbital kill zones. It's a battlefield of mathematics, physics, and sheer nerve. History whispers into this rivalry. Decades ago, the Soviet Union launched the world's first satellite, Sputnik, sparking the space race that drove America to the moon. Today, the echoes return. Where the Cold War once filled bunkers with nuclear fear, the new standoff fills control rooms with orbital anxiety. Both sides know that striking too far could ignite chaos on Earth, yet both prepare for the unthinkable. Because in the silence of orbit, hesitation could mean defeat. This isn't science fiction. It's not fantasy. Both nations already possess the tools to cripple one another in space. Russia has demonstrated ground-based missiles that can shatter satellites into debris clouds. America has shown laser systems that can blind orbital cameras. Both are accused of inspector satellites that maneuver suspiciously close to rivals. And both gamble with the same truth. A war in space would leave debris that threatens not just armies, but every human who depends on the satellites above. Now pause and consider. What happens when the first jamming signal is sent? When the first shadow satellite brushes too close? When the first blinding laser is fired? Who responds? Who hesitates? Who dares escalate? The silence of space can become the loudest battlefield of all. And this is only the beginning. The first shadows in orbit. What if the opening move of the conflict came not with a missile launch, but with silence? What if, without warning, a single American satellite went dark, its signals cut as though swallowed by the void? Would it be a malfunction or a hostile act? High above Earth, in the blackness of geostationary orbit, machines circle in paths that never touch. Yet on this night, something changes. A Russian satellite, officially catalogued as an inspector, begins drifting closer to an American military relay hub. Its course isn't random. Its movements are deliberate, almost surgical. In Colorado Springs, inside the command center of U.S. Space Force, alarms quietly flash. Operators lean forward, voices tighten, but no one dares declare the truth out loud. A shadow is stalking their satellite. The room hums with quiet urgency. Every keystroke, every flicker of radar data carries the weight of escalation. If Russia's craft is simply observing, retaliation would be reckless. But if it's armed with robotic arms, lasers, or kinetic weapons, then hesitation could mean losing an eye in the heavens. Silence becomes unbearable. Here lies the trap. Russia's doctrine thrives on ambiguity. Their space stalkers are built to blur the line between peaceful science and military threat. They can glide near an American satellite, perhaps record its emissions, perhaps do nothing. Yet with the smallest adjustment, a push, a burst of thrusters, they could disable it forever. And America knows it. The Space Force response is swift, but quiet. In a hangar thousands of miles away, a rocket sits primed for launch, part of the Rapid Space Mobility Initiative. Unlike the lumbering launches of the past, these are designed to be deployed in hours, not weeks. The order isn't given yet, but the clock has started ticking. Meanwhile, far above the Earth, another American craft lurks in silence. The X-37B spaceplane. Shrouded in mystery, its exact missions remain classified, but in this scenario, its presence takes on new meaning. It has been orbiting for months, unseen by the public eye, but not blind to the Russians' moves. Its sensors sweep, its systems listen, and in the silence of space, it prepares for a mission no one will admit. The Russians, confident in their head start, underestimate the quiet growth of this new branch of America's military. They recall decades of dominance, from Soyuz capsules to orbital laboratories, and believe America's Space Force is still an experiment. But deep within American strategy sessions, the word denial takes on chilling clarity. Denial of access. Denial of orbit. Denial of the enemy's vision. Picture this: a Russian inspector satellite edges close, its claws extending to disable an American relay node. Just as it moves in, the X-37B's systems awaken. With a sudden burn of its thrusters, it shifts into interception orbit. The hunter becomes the hunted. For the first time, Russia's controllers realize they are not alone in their silent stalking. Back on Earth, neither side admits to what is happening. Publicly, spokesmen speak of routine operations. Privately, generals feel the pulse of escalation. In the world's capitals, leaders wonder, how long before these shadows in orbit lead to an irreversible act? The suspense grows heavier. A single collision, a single strike, could scatter thousands of fragments across orbit, threatening not just militaries, but civilian satellites, communication networks, even astronauts aboard space stations. The risk is apocalyptic. And yet, the silence pushes both sides closer to the brink as the Russian satellite lingers. As the American craft looms, a new question rises. Will the first blow be a strike or a signal? Will this war be fought with lasers and robotic arms, or with silence and intimidation? The answer waits in orbit, where the first shadows cross paths. And what follows will change the rules of warfare forever. The war no one sees what if the first strike of the conflict was never seen, never heard, never even felt. What if the only sign of attack was confusion? Pilots losing navigation, troops unable to communicate, cities slipping into sudden digital darkness. It begins not with missiles, but with silence turned into chaos. Somewhere deep inside Russia's Space Command, operators send a coded burst toward orbit. Instantly, American satellites begin to feel the weight of interference. Signals weaken. GPS accuracy falters. In the Pacific, a squadron of U.S. Navy aircraft veers slightly off course. In Europe, ground forces report garbled communications. It looks like technical error. But inside Space Force headquarters, there is no doubt. The war has started. Jamming is the weapon of choice. No explosions, no debris. Just pure disruption. Russia has long prepared for this doctrine, believing that blinding the enemy is more effective than destroying them outright. By turning satellites into useless shells, they can cripple an opponent without firing a shot that the world would recognize as war. But America is not unprepared. Within seconds, Space Force operators unleash countermeasures. Encrypted uplinks switch frequency bands. Stealth communication nodes reroute signals through hardened satellites in low Earth orbit. The battlefield becomes a digital chessboard, with each side moving invisible pieces across the silent void. Yet, Russia escalates. In Kaliningrad, a ground-based laser locks onto an American imaging satellite, flooding its sensors with blinding light. The satellite reels, unable to photograph the troop movements below. On Earth, the denial of vision changes the balance of power. Armies move unseen. Ships slip across seas unnoticed. The fog of war thickens. Then comes the strike no one predicted. A cyberattack, launched not from space, but from Earth, slips into the control systems of American satellites. Operators watch in disbelief as one craft suddenly spins out of its orbiting path. Was it hacked? Was it hijacked? In this new theater, code is as lethal as missiles. Inside the U.S. Command Center, tension spikes. Space Force officials debate whether to reveal what's happening to the world. Do they admit that their satellites are under attack? Or do they hold silence, guarding their secrets even as the war unfolds? The weight of decision presses down, but the response cannot wait. America deploys its ACE-resilient mega-constellations of satellites. Unlike Russia's larger, fewer ASATs, America has invested in swarms of small satellites capable of rerouting, re-networking, and surviving attack by sheer numbers. Even as some fall silent, others light up, filling the gaps. It is a strategy of resilience, one that Russia never fully accounted for. Now the confrontation grows sharper. Russian commanders realize their initial advantage is slipping. Their stalker satellites, their lasers, their jamming waves, they are meeting an opponent who adapts faster than expected. In orbit, the X-37B maneuvers once again, silently tailing a Russian craft that drifts too close. For the first time, Moscow wonders if the Americans will reveal something even more secretive, a hidden weapon. A silent counterpunch waiting in the blackness of space. The world below senses nothing but small glitches. Civilians complain of GPS errors. Airlines report brief disruptions. Communications companies issue vague warnings of technical anomalies. Yet above them, a shadow war rages, one that could tip into disaster with a single wrong move. And then, it happens. In the darkness of space, sensors detect a blinding flash. Not nuclear, not explosive, but a burst of energy. A directed energy beam fired from the ground slashes across an American satellite. The craft shudders, systems fail, and in that moment, America knows the threshold has been crossed. This is no longer testing. This is no longer probing. This is an attack. The question now looms like a storm. Will America strike back openly? Or continue fighting a war no one is supposed to see? The silence of space has shattered. The real battle is about to begin. Asterisk. When the sky turns hostile, what if the first visible clash of the war was not a missile, but two satellites colliding at thousands of miles per hour? What if the world's first true space battle began with a shower of debris, spiraling down like invisible shrapnel, threatening everything in orbit? The silence is broken. For weeks, the shadow war has been hidden behind official denials and vague statements of routine anomalies. But now, the escalation can no longer be concealed. In the dead of night above the Pacific, an American satellite and a Russian inspector finally cross paths too close. At orbital speeds, there is no such thing as a gentle nudge. A glancing strike sends fragments scattering like razor-edged bullets across orbit. Within minutes, sensors around the globe detect the growing cloud. The world's first battlefield in space has announced itself. In Moscow, officials claim it was an accident. In Washington, Space Force commanders argue it was deliberate. The truth is lost in the silence of orbit. But the consequences are immediate. Debris threatens every spacecraft in its path, civilian, commercial, and military alike. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station brace for evasive maneuvers. Airlines warn of disruptions. And for the first time, the public sees headlines that whisper the unthinkable: space war. Inside Space Force Command, urgency turns into action. Orders are given. Maneuvers that were once simulated in war games are now executed in real time. Satellites begin shifting into defensive formations. Experimental bodyguard craft, smaller and more agile, move into position to shadow America's most critical assets. In orbit, the choreography of machines looks like a dance, but one choreographed for survival. Russia responds in kind. Its Cosmos series satellites adjust orbits, moving deliberately, some toward American constellations, others away. The message is clear: they will not retreat. Both sides know that any strike powerful enough to destroy could unleash a cascade of debris that might cripple orbit for decades. And yet, both press forward, willing to gamble with disaster to hold the upper hand. Now the first visible weapon is revealed. From the deserts of Kazakhstan, a Russian anti-satellite missile arcs upward, piercing the atmosphere. Its target is a decommissioned satellite, chosen as a demonstration. The impact is devastating. A blinding flash in the heavens, a satellite shattered into thousands of fragments. On Earth, Russian state media declares victory, proof that they can blind the United States whenever they choose. But America does not flinch. Hours later, the skies over Florida light up. A Falcon 9 rocket thunders upward, not with a commercial payload, but with classified military cargo. Space Force calls it routine deployment. Russia calls it escalation. The truth lies in orbit. A new generation of defensive satellites, smaller, faster, networked like a swarm. They are not there to destroy. They are there to outlast, outmaneuver, and overwhelm. The balance of power tilts in ways no one predicted. Russia, with its bold missile strike, proves it can destroy. But America, with its rapid deployment and resilient swarms, proves it can adapt. For every satellite threatened, 10 more rise to take its place. The battlefield is no longer about single machines. It is about constellations versus killers. Numbers versus precision. Swarms versus stalkers. The world watches in unease. News anchors speak cautiously of orbital incidents. Stock markets dip as communication companies warn of outages. Scientists plead for restraint, fearing a Kessler syndrome that could litter orbit with debris forever. Yet behind the caution, militaries prepare for the next step. Because once debris has fallen, once missiles have been fired, once headlines have broken the silence, there is no turning back. In orbit, the stage is set. Satellites maneuver aggressively. Constellations shift like armies repositioning before battle. Hidden craft lurk in shadow, waiting for the command to reveal themselves. The question now hangs over both. Nations like a blade. Will the next move stay in the shadows? Or will the first open strike in the history of space warfare be unleashed for all the world to see? The line between accident and intent has already blurred. The line between peace and war is about to break, and what follows will not only decide who controls orbit, but who controls the future of Earth itself. The final gambit among the stars. What if the final blow in this shadow war wasn't meant to destroy, but to reveal? What if the most powerful weapon in orbit wasn't a missile or a laser, but the truth that neither side dared admit that space itself had become the ultimate battlefield? The standoff has reached its peak. The world knows now. News headlines blare warnings of a new space race turned hostile. Images of debris clouds ripple across screens, and whispers of anti-satellite weapons echo in every capital. But behind closed doors, far above Earth, the real war has already escalated beyond anything the public imagines. Russia believes it holds the ace. Buried deep in its doctrine is a weapon designed not for destruction, but for dominance. Orbital interceptors capable of approaching enemy satellites undetected, docking like shadows and rendering them useless without a single explosion. In Moscow, commanders authorize the move. Across low Earth orbit, several Russian craft drift silently toward American constellations, unseen except by the most advanced radars. Their mission: cripple America's vision before the next sunrise. But America has prepared for this moment. Space Force has been waiting to reveal its hand. In the silence above Earth, something stirs, satellites unlike any seen before. They are small, fast, almost insect-like in their agility. Linked together by secure AI-driven networks, they move as one. For the first time, the United States deploys its most secretive strategy: constellations that fight not as individual machines, but as living networks. As Russia's shadow interceptors approach, the swarm awakens. Tiny thrusters fire. Patterns shift. The American satellites scatter and regroup, confusing their pursuers. Every Russian move meets a counter. Every approach finds itself blocked. Suddenly, the hunter becomes the hunted. Back on Earth, commanders watch the screens in disbelief. Moscow realizes their prized stalkers cannot pin down a target. Washington realizes their swarm is more powerful than they dared test in peacetime. The silent duel turns into a revelation. Resilience has outpaced aggression, but the battle is far from over. Russia escalates further, preparing another ground-based missile test. America considers preemptive action, a show of force meant to deter, not destroy. And here lies the razor's edge. One miscalculation could fill orbit with fire and fragments, condemning humanity's access to space for generations. The world watches uneasily as rumors spread of unexplained flashes in the skies. Civilian satellites go offline for hours. Navigation systems glitch worldwide. Air traffic controllers scramble to keep order. It is the closest humanity has ever come to losing its lifeline above the Earth. And then, silence. Neither side fires the decisive shot. Both stare into the abyss and step back. The cost is too great, the risk too irreversible. Instead, a tense standstill emerges, one where every satellite is a soldier, every orbit a front line, and every silence a warning. The war no one wanted has revealed itself. Space is no longer the peaceful frontier it once seemed. It is the high ground of the future, a domain where shadows hunt shadows and silence holds the weight of war. As the chapter closes, one haunting truth remains. This was only a rehearsal. Both America's Space Force and Russia's Space Command now know exactly how close they came. And the next time, neither may stop short of the final strike. The battle for the stars has only just begun. Asterisk.